This is a stage 37 review. You're going to start off with verb recognition. The two big ones that you're going to have problems with are the future passive indicative and the future perfect active indicative. They look pretty much the same. The difference is going to be in the stems. In the future passive indicative, we have the scrib, which is our present stem. In the future perfect passive, or future perfect active indicative, you have the perfect stem. It's really the only way to tell these two apart. If you don't know the forms of the word you're dealing with, it's very, very difficult to tell them apart. Next, you have the present active subjunctive versus the future active indicative. They both have the same stem. They both have the same form when they are in the first person singular. They look identical. When it comes to this, you're going to have to ask yourself whether or not you need a subjunctive. Does it have an oot? Does it have a nay? Does it have an indirect question, an indirect command? If it does, it's subjunctive. If not, it's probably future. If I were mean, I would just leave you there, but I am not mean, so I will not leave you there. This is a quick review over how to form these verbs. We have present system, which includes the present, imperfect, and future. Those are in black. We have red, subjunctive, indicative. Those are our moods. We have active and passive. Those are our voices. Down at the bottom, I gave you the markers and the personal endings for the present system. After those, there are no more. So when I start with the present, anything that I do that is present is going to start off with my present stem, like putare. After I take off my RE, I end up with the stem of the word. So I can move my markers to and fro. If I don't have a marker and I don't have a clue, I'm just going to put an ending on there to give me the present tense. If I want to make it imperfect, I have to give it an imperfect marker, BA, and then add my personal ending. If I want to make it future, I have to do the same thing. Bring it over here, and I have to decide, because it's future, whether or not I'm dealing with the first and second conjugation or the third and fourth. First and second conjugation uses the BI, and then I use the T for the ending. Now, why did I separate the first and second from the third? If I look at the third and I start with skire, and I take off the RE, that gives me my stem for the present tense. I don't give it a marker, just put the T on it, I got the present tense. If I move it over here and I add the BA, there'll be an E in there as well. And then I give it an ending T, I have the imperfect tense. However, move it over here to the future, sign of the future is E. I have it an ending, so my future, instead of using the BI like I did for the first or second conjugation, I use the E and then I give it the ending. So those two would look different. So what happens if I want to make something passive? I want to change it to the passive. While I'm dealing with the present system, the only thing I'm going to do different is I'm going to add the different ending. I still start off with putare, take off my RE to leave me with puta. If I don't add anything to this, then I have the present tense. But I want to make it passive, so I use the passive ending, which is ter. These guys right here, all of these guys right here are passive endings for the present system. If I move it over to the imperfect, I add the BA, and then I add my passive ending. Now I have a passive voice. If I want the future, I move it over here. I decide whether or not it needs a BI or it needs an E. In this case, I know it needs a BI, and then add my passive. So that's the passive voice of the present system. All of these so far have been indicative. So what happens if instead of the passive, what if I want the subjunctive, and then I want the subjunctive active? Well, if I'm dealing with the present system, I'm still going to start off with that present stem. So I have putare. Take off the RE, leaves me with puta. If I don't add anything to it, it's not really helping me out. Remember, I'm going to change the stem. I'm going to change the stem from the A to an E if it's first. And that will make it present subjunctive. If I want the imperfect subjunctive, I still have the stem. I want to give it back its RA, and then I'm going to add an ending. So just the infinitive plus an ending. And if I want the future subjunctive active, I need help, because I ain't one. If I want to make it passive, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to give it these endings right here instead. For the imperfect subjunctive, I use patare, add ter instead. For the present, I'm going to add the e. Sign of the subjunctive in the first conjugation is e. And then I'm going to add not the t, which would make it active, but I'm going to add the ter, which would make it passive. That's it for the present system. Now, we do have these goofy words like regredior that are not very nice to us. Those are called deponents, and they're always active even though they look passive. So when I'm looking at deponents, I want to think, obviously we're dealing with the indicative now, I want to think it looks passive, but it's actually active. So passive is involved because of the form. Same thing here. I'm going to start off with the present stem, which is regredi. That is our, in this case, it is our present active infinitive. Then I'm going to treat it as if I were making the passive voice for the other ones. In this case, I would just add the ter, one of those endings. You're not going to use these active endings. All of these are going to be passive endings. So if I move it over here to the imperfect, I'm going to have an EBA. And then to make it passive, look passive, I'm going to have ter, but still I'm going to translate that as active. If I want to get it to the future, put it over here, start off that way. Sign of the future is E. And then I give it its passive ending. So as far as forming it, we just treat it like it's passive and translate it as active. If they ask you whether or not it's active or passive, you say it's active. So can I make regredi subjunctive? So I want to get rid of the indicative. Want the subjunctive active or passive. Can I make it subjunctive? Yes. Do it the same way that I have been. Sign of the subjunctive is A. I give it a passive ending. I have a subjunctive. If I want the imperfect subjunctive, I'm going to do it the same way that I did. I'm going to have regredi. Now, because regredi is a third conjugation, we're going to get rid of this I to make it imperfect subjunctive. We need to give it the ERE. And then we're going to make it passive with ter. And what about the perfect system? Perfect system is a lot easier than the present system because it doesn't have a lot of irregularities. If I want something to be perfect, I'm going to start off with the perfect stem. Here I have putawi and skiwi. I'm going to take off those I's if I need to. If I just put a T on the end of these, I'm going to get that perfect. I put the wrong T on that. These are the perfect actives right here. These are the endings that I'm going to put on there. So if I take off the I and I want the third person singular, I'd add the IT, and we get putawit. Now I'm going to use these same stems for the pluperfect. Pluperfect, however, needs a marker like ERA. And then I can give it an ending, one of these regular endings, to finish it. So putaweret or skilleret will give us our pluperfect. For our future perfect, still going to use these two stems, move them over, future perfect, get a marker for ERI. I'm going to use this T right here to finish it, and I give it to putaweret. Now these are all active and part of the perfect system. So we would say that these are indicative and active. But if I want to change that, I want it to be subjunctive and active. Well, to make something subjunctive, I'm still going to start off with these two guys right here. So I'm going to start off with those. I'm going to take off those I's, leave me with putav and skiv. I need to make it an infinitive first. Putawisi. This right here will give me the perfect infinitive. Once I have the infinitive, I add the T. That gives me my pluperfect subjunctive. So it should look like that. And if I want skilly to do it, skillicit, same thing. Now how do I make it passive? Well, unlike the present, there's a different stem for the passive. So we'll start off with the indicative passive. Now we can include regredior because it's supposed to look passive. So if I start off with the fourth principal part, putatis, and I want to make it perfect, all I'm going to do is add a form of su, est. If I want to be pluperfect, then I'm going to move it over here under pluperfect. I'm going to add the ERA. I still need a form of sum. Where's my T at? There it is. Got to move that back. So I add the T and I get putatis erat. If I want it to be future perfect, I'm going to move it over here. Still going to use that future perfect ending ERI. And then I'm going to add the T to get putatis erat. All of the perfect passives are going to use the perfect passive stem, that fourth principal part. I can do the same thing with scitus. For the future perfect, I'm going to have scitus erit. Pluperfect is scitus erat. And the perfect is going to be scitus est. Those are the perfect passive systems. Can I make it subjunctive? Now, if I want the perfect passive subjunctive, I'm going to have to use scitus, which is our fourth principal part. Then I have to use a form of sum. Might as well use the subjunctive of sum, which is seat. Scitus seat gives me my perfect passive subjunctive. If I get rid of that, I want to make it pluperfect. Okay, if I want to make it pluperfect, remember we had to have an infinitive. Well, I don't have one here. I need a form of sum. Hey, what up, SA? Here he is. Take that. I'm going to add the T, and I get my pluperfect passive subjunctive of scio. I'm going to use regredior the same way. Okay, because it is deponent, I'm still going to use these passive forms, even though that we decided this is going to be subjunctive, active / passive. We're going to start off with regressus. We're going to get rid of that sum real quick, and we're going to start giving it the parts that it needs. If I want a perfect subjunctive, I'm just going to add that form cease to get my perfect subjunctive. Pluperfect subjunctive, I need an infinitive. Here it is, SA. Add the T, and I'm finished. If you look at regressus esset, it looks passive, but it is a subjunctive and active. So this would be third person, singular, pluperfect, subjunctive, and active. The biggest ones, though, are to make sure that you can tell the difference between these four. They do look similar. You have to identify them. Next, we have the subjunctive use. So we know what a subjunctive looks like. Do we know how to use it? Well, you guys have 5 different ways. Well, I only have 5 here. You also have a couple of others. I did omit the cum clause and a couple of others. On the first, we have a purpose clause. You have to be able to identify them. I gave you green. Again, the green is to identify the things within the sentence that you should be looking for. Purpose clause needs pugnaret, which is a subjunctive. It needs ut as its conjunction. You can also use a ne for that as well. So in the first one, we have Domitianus Agriculum missit ut pugnaret. Domitianus sent Agricola to fight. For result clause, I have to have the green tantum and the ut and the subjunctive wellet. For result clause, I have to have that so word tantum. So he had so much money that he wanted nothing. A fear clause. Think of the fear clause like this. It is upside down. It's weird because a fear clause says exactly what you think it doesn't say. Here I have timid, nay. I have to have a nay or an ut. And then I have the subjunctive occidit. He fears that he will kill the girl. The nay makes it sound like it's going to be negative. But fear clauses are upside down, so it's a positive. He fears that this is going to happen. If you get the ut, he would fear not. Next, you have indirect question. You have to have some kind of mental action like novimus here, but then you get cur, which is our question word, and then veneris, which is our subjunctive. So here we have, we knew why you returned. Last, we have an indirect command. Again, need some kind of persuasion word, some kind of command word, mental action of some kind. Need an ut, and you need a subjunctive, like parken. That should be to spare his, I guess it'd be her, husband. Those are the 5 uses that are going to be on your exam. Again, there are others that I'm not going to include, like the cum clause and the jussive. Infinitives are a huge part of this test. Here's a list of them. I gave you a second and a third because I just chose to. Make sure that you can tell what conjugation each one is. So in this case, docere is second because the long mark over the E. Ducere is third because there is no long mark over the E. Translations for the present active, to lead. For the perfect active, I have the ISSE, and that is to have led. To make it passive, I'm going to take, for the ERE, ARE, IREs that have macrons, I'm just going to take off the E and add an I like I did with dokeri. If it's the third conjugation, I need to take off the ERE and add an I. So for the present passive dokera, for present passive duki, it's to be led. Perfect passive infinitive, not a problem. Use that perfect passive stem and add essa. And translation, to have been led. Now, translating these guys in a sentence, you can always do literally, but your book is really asking you to try and figure out how to translate them in more natural English. Here I give you a list of basically the same sentence 4 different ways, and I've changed the infinitive in each one. I go from the present active dukra to the perfect active duksisi to the present passive duki to the perfect passive duktum essa. And I've shown through the coloring how that sentence changes whenever I change that particular infinitive. In the first one, I'm going to translate dukara, which is present, as the same time. So he knows is in the present, so I'm going to translate dukara as the present as well. He knows that I am leading the boy to prison. In the second one, I've changed dukara to duksisi. Because it is a perfect active infinitive, it's perfect tense, it happened before. He knows is in the present, so I need to make duksisi happen in the past. He knows that I led the boy to prison. If I change it to passive, I have to kind of change some other things as well, because I'm changing who receives the action. So if I have skeet me ab puero, that ablative of agent is going to show up because I'm in the passive duki. In this case, I have he knows that I am led by the boy to prison. Duki's in the present, skeet is in the present, same time, so I translate it as the same time. In the bottom one, I have changed duki to duktum essa because it is a perfect infinitive. I need to make sure it happens before the main verb. The main verb skeet is still in the present tense. He knows that I was led by the boy to prison. As long as it happens before skeet, we're in good shape. Using Latin cases, they're going to take a word out of a sentence, and they're going to give you 3 choices of that word, ablative, dative, accusative, and they're going to ask you, okay, which one belongs in this sentence? And you're going to have to determine based off of either the verb that's being used, whether it takes the dative or not, whether it is part of a prepositional phrase, or whether it's direct object. Based off of that, you're going to have to choose which one to use in that sentence. Let's look at a little practice really quickly. Identifying the tense of a verb. In number 1, misisti, I see the ISTI. That should identify it as perfect, which I don't have as a choice, but now I do. Same thing, after I'm finished with that, I'm going to move this down here. Number 2, I look at rewanium. I don't have anything that signifies the needed use of the subjunctive, so I'm going to go with future active, which is C. Number 3, I do have, in this case, oot. I have a purpose, the reason that somebody is staying. Quintus stays at the villa so that. So I have a purpose clause, I need a subjunctive in this case. So the difference in those two, as far as their construction, ruanium and ruanium, they look the same. However, they're used in different ways. The first one is future, number 2 is future, and number 3 is subjunctive because it's part of the purpose clause. Number 4, bi signifies the future. Number 5, that's perfect as well. Another one right here, I put this in the, during class, or you looked at this during class, but let's look at these two again. These two are really designed to see if you know how to translate parare and discessi. That's what the test is going to ask you to do. So if I look at skio, that's in present. I look at parare, that's in present. I know something has to happen at the same time, so I know that the slave or slaves is preparing the food. In this case, we know that it is slaves, plural B. In the second one, I have the clients think. Putat is in the present tense. Duskesisi is in the perfect tense, has to happen before. So I know it's not going to will leave because that happens after. It has to be has left or has been sent. Well, it's active, so it's going to be has left, B. Here's a list of verbs: utor, placet, favio, wolo, nolo, video, locor, secor, necesse, s. Make sure that you know which ones take dative and which one takes accusative. Highlighted ones there, they take the accusative, the rest take the dative. Are you going to get some sentences that are asking you what kind of clause you're dealing with? In this one we have dimittianus ipse adest ut fabulam spectat. Well, we have an ut, so we know that it's dealing with a purpose clause or result clause. Could be an indirect command, and those are our three choices. When we look at this, is it an order? Domitius is here. Well, it's not a result clause because I don't have a so word. He's here in order that he can do something. That's probably the purpose. There are several of those that are going to ask you, do you recognize what kind of subjunctive clause is being used? Types of infinitives are important. You're going to get a list of words, or maybe it'll give you regretti, and you have to ask yourself, is that present active, present passive, perfect active, or perfect passive? Try those 5 right there. I bet you get one of them wrong. Regretti is the one I thought you guys might mess up on, because regardless of how many times I tell you that gratior is a deponent, you never get it. That is a present active infinitive. Missi is a perfect active, mississum esse is a perfect passive, duci is a present passive, and posse is a present active. Based off of the stories that you've read, they're going to ask you whether or not somebody is in support of Agricola or in support of Domitian by whatever they're saying. So if they say, hey, we need to stay in Ireland, we need to go to Ireland and beat up everybody, that would be in support of Agricola. If they're like, no, we need to bring him home, we don't want him to have too much power, that would be Domitian. Make sure that you know, number one, what the cursus honorum is, and what each one of the spots within the cursus honorum is responsible for. For example, the vigintor, he's going to manage the prisons. He's going to manage, I don't understand this, but prisons and minting of coins. That definitely goes together. Criminals and money. Tribunus militum, you need to make sure you're aware that he serves as kind of like a legion or a military leader, usually abroad. A quaestor is going to be responsible for managing the public money, so he's like an accountant. Tribunus plebis is in charge of knowing what the people are wanting. The aedile is responsible for keeping up the baths and the sewers, so he's like the city project manager. Praetor is going to be somebody who's like a judge. He's going to run the law, and then consul, of course, he's going to overlook all of it. Cultural terms. You have an amici. Well, that's going to be the term given to the emperor's council. You have a concilium. That's obviously a council. So the amici are like the friends, like the really close friends that he would have. Cursus honorum is the series of offices that they're going to have to go through. Sententia is an opinion. Sua anno is in one's year. Cultural questions. To help us out with the cultural, I found a guy who was just released from prison. He was a buddy with Al Capone. How do the citizens through the cursus honorum, how do they go through it? Well, you see, they go through paces, different paces. Hold on, I gotta go. I don't know where that guy went, but what he meant to say was that the citizens move through the cursus honorum at different paces, different speeds. Let me try to find somebody else to help you guys out. Alright, I just got in from dodgeball. How did a Roman end up on the Emperor's Council? He was appointed. Oh my gosh, who hit me with that? I hope he's okay. Somebody just hit him with a dodgeball. Hold on, let me see if Rupke's in. Hey, Travel. Here. I think what he meant to say was, what class of people made the council up? Senatorial and equestrian. I don't speak Rupke, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said. We'll try this with a different coach. Here you go. What happened to the council when the emperor changed? Well, he kept some of them and got rid of some of the others. All right, here we go. One more. Punt. All right, coach, have fun over there with the special teams. Next, we have how binding was the council's advice? It wasn't really that binding. The emperor could pretty much do whatever he wanted to do after the advice was given.
Attention, teachers and students. This is a reminder that there is a free lunch buffet after school at CC's Pizza, sponsored by Mr. Pratt, Mr. Oberstein, and the class of 1973.
Sorry for that interruption. How free was the council to reveal their own opinions? Could be dangerous. I mean, it could be...
Trimo won't be here anymore. So, on to the next. About what matters to the council? Anything. Absolutely anything. Oh my god.
Sorry about that. Miss Brown thought she had me. She didn't. I think she's going to be down there for a while. What was dangerous about the council in Domitian's time? They actually tried to gain power. They lied about each other. They did things that would, put them up the cursus honorum. What was the purpose of the cursus honorum? It really allowed the emperor to reveal the skills of the people that were working up the ladder. What skills did Agricola have? Very good with military strategy. Skills that Pliny the Younger have. His were more financial. Here's a list of English words and Latin words that you're going to need to know for your test. Starting out with diva. Diva is basically a leading woman in a movie or in an opera. Auriferous is something that has gold in it. Invidious, giving offense, trying to be offensive. Oblivious is basically clueless, forgetful, and mindful. Estivate is like I think it's like to spend summer. Like to spend summer in kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Hibernation state. There you go. Sorry about that. Culpable is like blamable. Expatriate is to exile somebody. It's usually an exile. Somebody who's been exiled is called an expatriate. Imperturbable is somebody who is can't make them decide. You can't get them riled up. Initiate is to begin, or to bring something to a beginning, to start. Irrevocable is cannot be recalled. Irrevocable. Fiat is an order issued by someone in authority. Indubitable is unquestionable. No, that's not right. Undoubtable. It's unquestionable. Undoubtable. Inane is lacking sense or meaning. And invalidate is to deprive of legal force. The rest of these have to do with Latin and English as far as derivatives are concerned. Amplius is going to be associated with amplifying or making something bigger. Aureum is going to be associated with gold. Conjunx is going to be associated with something to do with marriage. Culpo is blame. Dignus is worthy. Incense is like on fire. Exemplum is an example. Exercitus is an army. Discra, I have Dignus on there twice. Discra is to learn. So if you think about this, what English words come from these, and that's really what your test is going to ask you as far as your Latin derivatives are concerned. Thank you guys very much. Good luck on your test. I gotta go bury Angela.